Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to go over just kind of a general state of kind of where Bitcoin is at, what it's doing, all that type of stuff, because we have seen some pretty important developments. We have seen a little bit of some pullbacks going on within Bitcoin as well as just the wider crypto market. And so I did want to talk kind of a little bit about that, discuss, could we be going down further? How are things looking? Is the market starting to show some weakness after we've seen some really strong past several weeks? So anyway, let's go on ahead and dive right in and let's not waste any more time. So first off, what we can see here is overall, obviously the market down mostly, but we can see some greens kind of mixed in here overall. Things, kind of overall a pretty mixed market. Things are chopping around a decent bit. We can see Bitcoin down 1.6% on the day. A lot of these other bigger ones are things that have run relatively well. And so the fact that they're, all of this stuff is kind of pulling back. If you look at, at the weekly and then even at the monthly, things still up massive. So even these kind of momentary pullbacks, not really too big of a deal, just because we are seeing some massive moves, or we've already seen some massive moves to the upside. And so anyway, I'm not really too concerned there, though. What we can see here on the Bitcoin chart, I would call this kind of like a make or break type of moment, because there's some things going on here that I think are pretty important. And actually, I think it'll probably help dictate kind of what the rest of the market cycle is going to actually look like for us. And so what we can see is obviously massive run up. If we do see, basically ever since like the beginning of September, we've been on like a pretty decent uptrend. And then in the beginning of November, just massive move to the upside. But overall, basically, if you would have got in here, on September 6th, you were, $53,000 Bitcoin, and now we're looking at 93, right? So huge gains here seen over only the past couple of months. This is kind of what a lot of us expected out of the bull market, and ultimately, I don't even think we're done yet, right? And so I have gone over kind of a couple options on some of the past videos that we've done, and one of them I do think is potentially we stop out at this kind of momentary pullback. We could see price kind of stuttered a little bit right here before we started on a move up. The other thing I do think is we could kind of maybe possibly return to this larger trend line before we kind of departed due to good news from the US election. And so there is, I do think, this possibility that maybe we come back and potentially kind of bounce on this line. And again, depending on where we hit this line, if we came back to it relatively quickly, that could be all the way down at 77. If we kind of trade sideways, but in almost like a little bit of a downtrend, maybe we're seeing something like 82 range, all the way up to potentially 86 or 87 towards the end of December. So this kind of depends, I think, mainly what we're going to see from future cycles, or from this, I guess, upcoming cycle. If we do kind of maybe take this as our momentary pullback and we continue all the way up, ultimately topping out wherever that might be, this is something where I'm thinking we might see a little bit of a shorter cycle. Obviously, we've seen some massive gains very quickly, and the kind of bullish pressure in the market might soften a little quicker than if we were to maybe see a larger pullback to, maybe like the 83-ish range. Then obviously there's going to be a lot more momentum when we come back down and ideally, but who knows, bounce off of this and kind of make a continued move to that upside. We can see that we have not broken 100,000 yet. That was kind of and I would say still remains to be a major psychological point of resistance, as well as kind of like a target for a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people that, they're almost certain Bitcoin's hitting 100K. There's certain Bitcoin's hitting 120, 150, 300, all the way up. The guesses kind of get crazier from there. But overall, I do think it's probably relatively, I would say it's relatively safe to say that we're probably going to hit above 100K. Again, who knows? Maybe because so many people think that's exactly why it's not going to happen, because the market does enjoy inflicting kind of the most pain possible. And so, if everybody is essentially waiting for that 100K for kind of things to kick off or whatever, and we hit at our all-time highs 99,570, that would be kind of a cruel joke that I would deem in line with the markets. Maybe I just have a little bit of a cynical view here, but that's kind of my thoughts. What we can see, though, is we kind of have come back to center on the Bollinger Bands, and so this is a little bit of a good thing to see. We also can see that we've come back in to, or I guess we've come out of the overbought range on the RSI. So things are kind of looking to recover a little bit decently. Like I said, maybe we take the bounce here. We do have a level of support that we are sitting on, so we might be able to see a bounce coming, or potentially we do get into a little bit more of a macro retracement that we might see. Again, we have seen pullbacks in the 20 to 30% range going previous bull markets, and they continue on their way up, right? And so if we were to see we basically, let's just call it 100K for easy math. 20% would be down to 80K, 30% would be down to 70. This trend line sits, low point right now is somewhere around 75, and potentially, high point is 86. So maybe this is what we see, right? I mean, if we saw kind of a continued move down and we get to, the 10th of December, let's say, where we bottom out, that would be 79,000. That's about 20% right there. So definitely a strong possibility. I don't want people to think that it's going to be up only, because especially if this is your first cycle, I know people can get kind of carried away, and you see the gains and people get a little overzealous, and that's where people get hurt. And so I just want to make sure that people are remaining calm and measured as we kind of move through this market, because crazy things can happen, and you don't want to get yourself washed out on something that could potentially, be an ultimately long-term winning position. And obviously, even if you bought the top here, again, not financial advice, you need to kind of make your own decision. But for me, I could buy Bitcoin at pretty much any point. Obviously, the goal is not to lose money and kind of be sitting on bags that are down for a long period of time. But even if we were to go to, let's say, 150K tomorrow, and I bought the top, probably a bad trade. I would not do that just because I've been here since, Bitcoin's been 15K, and I've been paying attention the whole time. So I probably would not do that. But if I did, and let's just say I was doing a DCA, that's not a price that would be a bad price to me. I think wait 4 years, maybe if we have, a bad recession or depression or something, maybe it takes 8, maybe it's 10, who knows. But I think you wait long enough and it's going to come back around. And so really there's no price that's too expensive, again, within reason for me right now. So that's kind of my opinion. But again, totally not financial advice. You may completely disagree with that and think I'm nuts, and that's totally cool. If you are interested though in trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, any sorts of altcoins or whatever, spot or leverage, doesn't really matter, feel free to use my link in the description below. I am working with BTCC this month. They've put together a really, really great offer, which is a 10% bonus on first time deposits, which is fantastic because essentially you already get a bonus of up to $10,055 for signing up. And so if you use my link in the description below, you also get that 10% bonus on first time deposits, which in my opinion is a fantastic deal, right? If you're going to be trading and investing and doing all that type of stuff anyway, why not get the 10% free? And so, if you are interested, link in the description below. We can see, they've been around for 13 years, so probably longer than most of us, if I'm being honest. And then, 300 plus crypto futures, up to 500x leverage. Again, I do not recommend that, but if you want to, for whatever reason, it's there. And then also no VPN or KYC necessary, which is another good thing to see if you are not wanting to hand out your information. So anyway, like I said, link in the description, and you can go on ahead and get signed up and start trading. Moving on though, I did want to do just kind of a quick overview because a lot of this is very Bitcoin heavy. We'll probably just kind of glance over the RSI heat map, but here at open interest and volume, we can see, starting to see kind of a little bit of a pullback here. Not at all in my mind a big deal. We can see volume is still holding. I think things are looking good overall from this. We do always see, kind of ebbs and flows. The fact that we saw such a strong and ridiculous move basically from here to here, almost doubling open interest in the span of a month. I mean, that's insane, right? So, I mean, that's something where a little bit of a pullback, again, is healthy, just like pullbacks in price and all that type of stuff. I think this is reasonable. We are still keeping volume, which I do think is a good thing. If we look at the liquidation map, we can see that it's actually pretty much leveled out. We're sitting essentially kind of bulls and bears kind of equal in terms of the amount to be liquidated. Now, if we look to the 7-day, we can see something kind of nuts has happened too, because this is actually flipped. It's been essentially liquidating longs or favoring liquidating longs for a long time now. And so now the fact that we're actually switched to liquidating shorts does indicate that, maybe potentially we could be seeing maybe that larger move up earlier than we thought, and maybe we don't have to kind of come back because there is kind of some overall bullish sentiment. We can see tons of liquidations kind of sitting at the just shy of 100K range. So I think there's a lot of people who are kind of taking the bet that the 100K wall is going to be a much higher or a much harder target to break than maybe people expect. And who knows, maybe these are some of the bears that think that the top's in and we're actually not going to see $100,000 Bitcoin, kind of for the reason that I brought up earlier in the video, which I do think is a possibility. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it would not surprise me per se if we did see that. So that's kind of the way I look at it here. We can see we actually have moved out of extreme greed, coming back into greed. This is a fantastic thing to see, in my opinion. It's good that we're starting to see a lot of these metrics kind of reset and recover a little bit. This is realistically, I think, kind of overdue in what we needed to see. Also can see kind of something similar in RSI heat map. Things still definitely very, very strong from like a market perspective. I'd like to probably see this come back closer to neutral. Even maybe a little bit towards weak would be great, but there is a ton just sitting in strong and overbought right now. And I just don't think that that's like reasonable to kind of continue on long term. So that's kind of what we're seeing there. We also can see, just kind of very, very short term volume, open interest, and liquidations are kind of all down on the day. So definitely some less activity overall in the market. I think the market is essentially trying to shake people out, maybe cause some boredom, basically get people to leave so we can cash in on all these gains while everybody's gone, and then when they come back, they'll buy the top, just kind of like what normally happens when we see kind of the end levels of these bull markets, which again I don't love, but that's what happens. If you're here and you're paying attention, then you're obviously the beneficiary of that. We can also see, looking at the total to market cap, we saw some pretty huge wicks up here at the top, and so we have recovered from that. We've actually bounced a little bit off this like previous all-time, or not all-time high, but this previous high that we saw kind of late in March. So we did kind of bounce up off of that, have not essentially broken that level of support yet, which is definitely very good to see, but tons of wicks to the upside. And so I do think we need to see kind of a pretty strong move up. I'm not sure exactly, kind of when or how this would happen, particularly where I think most eyes are still on Bitcoin. We could be waiting a little while to see something like this, particularly another move of this magnitude. As we've talked about kind of on previous videos, we've got 1.47 kind of being the next one to look at, and then 1.7 being the one after. And then after that, we've kind of broken all-time highs, and then we're kind of in price discovery up to there. I think, kind of 2.6 million was kind of the fib level we were looking at in a couple videos ago. And then after that, we're looking about 3.5 million. Those are kind of the two levels I'm looking at personally, at least for the total market cap, excluding Bitcoin. But overall, it's really, really hard to say. Those are just kind of my general guesses based on what we've seen in the past, kind of how the market is shaped up so far, and just kind of my general thoughts on like how we're going to see this bull market materialize. Obviously, there's a ton of things. There's a million different things that could happen that change that, but that's kind of my thoughts on the market, at least currently. So if you did find the information in this video useful, please do give me a like and subscribe, because it really, really does help me out, particularly with growing the channel and finding more viewers and all that type of stuff. So if that is something where you did find the information useful, please do help me out, because it really, really does help a ton. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below, because I do try to read and respond to all of them. So if you have anything you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.